then let it be, because you all know that security, a country's security takes priority. So if one of the key organs, would I say, or the key methods that have kept us for these years has been the existence of the court-martial, people knowing that despite being a civilian, if you include yourself, you have stores of the army, you include yourself in armed robbery, you possess the gun, and all the cases that have been going to the court-martial. Now, if we remove this, because this just happened, then government immediately pronounced itself that they are going to appeal.
Right, yeah.
I mean, they're going to come through parliament. That means maybe this was very critical. And anything that jeopardizes or messes with the security of the country should take as something that we have to be very conscious. But I'm quick to add, they want to be gotten properly, that it can be a very big danger for us to use the law or any form of court to hide other intentions, because at times it can catch up with us.
That's true, and it can be on both sides.
We must be very mindful, very mindful. All the effort we are putting in to ensure that, yes, civilians go back to be tried by the court-martial, we should make sure we are pushing this for the right purpose. And the good thing is, there are amendments. For example, I also was never pleased with seeing a court where the people presiding over have no or are not qualified lawyers. And there were also a number of issues. But when we look at the aim, which is to restructure and re-establish the court-martial, including prescribing its jurisdiction. And let's be very honest, this will see the light of day. This will see the light of day. There's nothing that can stand in its way, because that is it, and that is what is going to be. However, it will come with amendments. But I'll be quick to give an example, and I'm going to give an example, a political example, because there are fears of many people that this is not being brought back in good faith to serve illegality. Rather, it might have a political combination or hidden agenda in it. When TikTok, to be more precise, we've had a number of apps here, but when TikTok came up, there was a crop of young men who were very good at abusing, insulting, and doing all forms of throwing insults at people who are not part of the opposition. Now, of course, it was enjoyable for those in opposition. When one Ekerumbuye, when one Half London, when one Kato Ashbag, these are things that they would later, did those people who felt comfortable and were like, these boys are in the struggle, know that a time may come and they turn guns towards them. I've lived to see them attack even some of who are their own, if they
those who made them.
Those who made them. Have seen them attack those who made them.
Right.
There was one who was good at using dogs, Dog Nation. Recently, there was a young girl who came up doing the same thing. So we must always make sure that when you're standing on a rock, in a river, or in a lake, don't forget that there can be a time water levels can go high, or a storm can come, and it is your turn to feel the hotness, the coldness of the water.
Right. Now, the spirit behind this whole conversation of the UPDF amendment bill is what matters the most. And for those who believe...
And that is what is being questioned.
Yes.
Is this for criminality?
Yes.
Or not for criminality purposes? If it is to fight criminality, because we must be very sensitive as a country.
Right.
Our peace is our priority. And if this has been one of the ways, because sometimes the law and security may differ, but the law may not be practiced where there is insecurity.
Or Uganda, may God uphold thee. What is on the local scene, Robert?
We begin with that. We choose to start with that, where Uganda People's Defence Force Amendment Bill 2025 first got lost in the fog as the line ministers were absent at the time of its reading. Now, the Minister of State for Trade, David Bahati, volunteered to present the UPDF bill. Drama continued as the State Minister for Veteran Affairs, Olero Hude Absen, appeared to lay an empty certificate of financial implication. And finally, the Minister of State for Defense, Jacob Oboth, saved the day. This situation depicted high stakes with possible consequences for failure. The Speaker of Parliament, Aneta Among, referred the bill to a joint Committee of Defense and Internal Affairs and Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. The UPDF Amendment Bill 2025 seeks to, among others, restructure and re-establish the court-martial, including presiding and prescribing its jurisdiction. The Supreme Court recently disqualified the trial of civilians in the court-martial. The bill in progress seeks cure through identifying exceptional circumstances under which civilians are tried in the court-martial. The government bill is also in the spirit that the UPDF has registered transformation, rising from both threats and opportunities. Speaker Anita Among wants a speedy approach to ensure the bill is not locked by the closure of the fourth session of the House. The Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, advised the courts of law to expeditiously handle cases related to abductions. This follows a concern raised by the Leader of Opposition, Joe Senyonyi, on the manner which Edward Sebufu, also known as Eddie Mutwe, was whisked by unknown security operatives and later brought to Masaka Court, charged and remanded. Leader of Opposition, Joel Senyonyi, wanted the House to pronounce itself on what he described as impunity. Recently, Edward Sebufu, known as Eddie Mutwe, was reportedly whisked by unknown armed men from Mukono district. Robert Chagulanyi's bodyguard was later brought to Masaka Court, charged and remanded accordingly. Joel Senyonyi brought the attention to the Speaker of Parliament. The Speaker did not agree with the LOP's attempt to front social media affairs to back up his submission. When asked, the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Norbert Mao, responded with a sense of dismissiveness. In another development, Speaker Amang directed the Ministry of Works to present a report to Parliament concerning the bad state of Ugandan roads that have caused recent and frequent accidents leading to the death of many Ugandans. Parliament yesterday paid tribute to the late Pope Francis, who is the head of the State of Vatican, for his selfless and dedicated service to the Catholic Church. The Prime Minister and Leader of Government Business in Parliament, Robina Nabanja, moved the motion. She said Parliament recognizes that Pope Francis devoted his time for reforms in the Catholic Church by appointing synods. Nabanja said the late was a pope with an open heart towards everyone, who encouraged leaders to act with humility. The motion was seconded by the Leader of the Opposition in Parliament, Joe Senyonyi, attributed to the late Pope as one who advocated for justice, transparency, and servant leadership. Buyaga West Constituency Member of Parliament Barnabas Tinkasimide said the late Pope Francis advocated for rights of all humans, while the woman representative for Amur, Akelo Lucy, will remember the late Pope as one who was a peacemaker, citing an incident when he kissed the foot of the leader of South Sudan. Pope Francis died on Easter Monday, the 21st of April, in Vatican City. And finally, on the local scene, Judge Bernard Namanya is presiding over election petition filed by the National Resistance Movement's Farida Nambi Chigongo, challenging Elias Lukwago's Elias Luyimbazi Nalukola's victory as the duly elected Member of Parliament for Kawempe North constituency. The first witnesses on the stand was the petitioner Farida Nambi Chigongo. During cross-examination by the respondent's legal team, Nambi was asked to tell court how many polling stations were not included in tallying the results from the 184 polling stations in Kawempe constituency. Nambi said among the results that were not tallied were the results from the polling station where she voted from at Imbogo Primary School playground and those from Kazo Angola where 16,640 voters turned up. However, it was hard for Nambi to tell court how the untallied votes from the 14 polling stations affected the results. Lawyer Samuel Muizi refuted Nambi's allegations that the elections were marked with chaos and violence. Narukola's lawyer Samuel Muizi dismissed the allegations. The respondents also questioned why Nambi did not consult the Electoral Commission about biometric verification machines, which could have supported her claims of missing results. Karure Mohammed, Farida Nambi's lead lawyer, responded to some of the questions asked to his client. Court will resume today for further hearing.
That is one case to look forward to. And yesterday, as I was reading about it, there are statements that read that scientific calculators were brought to court just to deal with the case. But anyways, moving on to the foreign scene, we're starting off from Uruguay, where the former Uruguayan president, Jose Mujica, known as Pepe, passed on at the age of 89. Now, the ex-gorilla who governed Uruguay from 2010 to 2015 was known as the world's poorest president because of his modest lifestyle. Current President Yamandu Ossi announced his predecessor's death on X, writing, "Thank you for everything you gave us and for your deep love for your people." The politician's cause of death is not known, but he had been suffering from esophageal cancer because of the simple way he lived as president, his criticism of consumerism, and the social reforms he promoted, which among other things meant that Uruguay became the first country to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. Mujica became a well-known political figure in Latin America and beyond. His global popularity is unusual for a president in Uruguay, a country with just 3.4 million inhabitants, where his legacy has also generated some controversy. In fact, even though many tended to see Mujica as someone outside the political class, that was not the case. He always said his passion for politics, as well as for books and working the land, was passed on to him by his mother, who raised him in a middle-class home in Montevideo, the capital city. Now, moving on to Trump, who is on a 4-day visit to the Middle East. President Donald Trump kicked off his trip to the Gulf on Tuesday, which was yesterday, with a surprise announcement that the United States will lift long-standing sanctions on Syria and a $600 billion commitment from Saudi Arabia to invest in the U.S. Now, the U.S. agreed to sell Saudi Arabia an arms package worth nearly $142 billion, according to the White House, which called it the largest defense cooperation agreement Washington has ever done. The end of sanctions on Syria would be a huge boost for a country that has been shattered by more than a decade of civil war. Rebels led by current President Ahmed al-Shara toppled President Bashar al-Assad last December. And speaking at an investment forum in Riyadh at the start of a deals-focused trip that also brought a flurry of diplomacy, Trump said he was acting on a request to scrap the sanctions by Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, moving on to Africa, a U.S. court has slashed $18 million awarded to Ghanaian investigative journalist Anas Aremeyo Anas in a defamation case of $500. Former Ghanaian MP Kennedy Agyapong was ordered to pay the huge sum after a jury found he had defamed Anas by calling him a criminal and of being behind the murder of a fellow journalist. Following a request by Agyapong's legal team for the amount to be reduced, a judge in a New Jersey court has ruled that $18 million was disproportionate and illegally unsustainable. The former MP said on X. Anas said he would appeal against the ruling despite his Tiger Eye PI Media Group previously saying that the case was never about money. The journalist began legal action against Ajakpong after the ex-MP made the defamatory remarks following his investigation into football corruption in Ghana and elsewhere. Anas had filed an initial case in Ghana where he lost, with the judge describing his work not as journalism but as investigative terrorism. He subsequently brought a different case before a court in the U.S. where Ajakpong owns a home and where the ex-MP was when he recorded the defamatory interview on the Daddy Fred Show podcast, according to court papers. Well, that's it from the foreign scene. What is on the press, Robert?
Well, be prepared to pay more tax. That is in the New Vision, a big headline there. Parliament, Buganda, Northern Uganda benefit most from extra funds, and a big headline there is budget raised again to 72 trillion. How much of that will be domestically collected? That will come in, and how much we shall borrow. Now, technical institutions ordered to register afresh. We have a Tanzanian boy dumped on Kampala streets to beg. And still the New Vision talks about Light Up Uganda convention to run from the 19th of this month till the 24th. And Museveni launches in Toroko Skilling Hub. He's done quite a number of these, and he launched one also in Toroko. Now allow me move to the Daily Monitor this morning. We have the agony of a stolen childhood. What it tells about the agony of a stolen childhood. And also we have why you should never kiss a baby. Yes.
Really?
So find out why. And house plants to avoid in your entryway. Which plants are those? And the best shopping deals in Kampala are also there. But don't forget that you can get more of these local papers when you get yourself a copy. Julie.
Yes, indeed. Looking at the citizen in Tanzania, Msuya force behind Tanzania's economic reforms laid to rest, and education budget rises to 2.4 trillion shillings amid teacher shortage concerns, and also how road upgrading has reshaped Dar's city suburbs. And moving on to the Daily Nation in Kenya, revealed the path to senior high schools. And Mwilu faces ouster over Gachagua impeachment case. That is in the Daily Nation. And also court blocks Ruto's housing project in Langata. Also Orengo's letter to Ruto and his state house isolation. Well, that's it from what is in the press today. Indeed, as Robert has stated, get yourself a copy to get more of what's in each paper. But for now, let's take a short break and enjoy some music from Omega 256 Omzeire.
Because you all know that security, a country's security takes priority. So if one of the key organs, would I say, or the key methods that have kept us for these years has been the existence of the court-martial, people knowing that despite being a civilian, if you include yourself, you have stores of the army, you include yourself in armed robbery, you possess the gun, and all the cases that have been going to the court-martial. Now, if we remove this, because this just happened, then government immediately pronounced itself that they're going to appeal.
Right, yeah.
I mean, they're going to come through parliament. That means maybe this was very critical. And anything that jeopardizes or messes with the security of the country should take as something that we have to be very conscious. But I'm quick to add, they want to be gotten properly, that it can be a very big danger for us to use the law or any form of court to hide other intentions, because at times it can catch up with us.
That's true, and it can be on both sides.
We must be very mindful, very mindful. All the effort we are putting in to ensure that, yes, civilians go back to be tried by the court martial, we should make sure we are pushing this for the right purpose. And the good thing is, there are amendments. For example, I also was never pleased with seeing a court where the people presiding over have no or are not qualified lawyers. And there were also a number of issues. But when we look at the aim, which is to restructure and re-establish the court martial, including prescribing its jurisdiction. And let's be very honest, this will see the light of day. This will see the light of day. There's nothing that can stand in its way, because that is it, and that is what is going to be. However, it will come with amendments. But I'll be quick to give an example, and I'm going to give an example, a political example, because these are fears of many people, that this is not being brought back in good faith to serve illegality. Rather, it might have a political combination or hidden agenda in it. When TikTok, to be more precise, we've had a number of apps here, but when TikTok came up, there was a crop of young men who were very good at abusing, insulting, and doing all forms of throwing insults at people.
Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000, or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100*21# and select daily, or use the MyNGN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for being on UBC TV as Robert and I take you through your morning. And in case you've just joined us, good morning. Thank you so much for joining UBC TV. Now, did you know that Uganda ranks 6th in Africa with a 2.9% incidence of anxiety disorders among its population? And this is according to a study by World Health Organization, a 2017 study. Given that Uganda has one of the youngest populations, which was, as of last year, discovered as a 75% of the population being young. Now, that being said, that means that a lot of Ugandans, many Ugandans, the biggest chunk of Ugandans, are suffering from mental health disorders. They are suffering from addictions. They are suffering from suicidal tendencies. And that is a line that we are looking at today with Robert. Now, to be on the conversation, 0709-602-592. But one would wonder, what exactly does mental illness mean? Now, according to research and records from research, mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these. Mental illnesses can be associated with distress and or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. Now, today in particular, we are focusing on mental illnesses, addictions, and suicidal tendencies in families in particular. And that's what we are looking at. Now, Robert, good morning once again.
Oh, good morning to you and our viewer who is watching us this morning.
Right. With that brief background that I've shared, how do you think mental illnesses coexist within families?
Well, we want to look at it this way. There's mental illness that will come as a result of suffering from a particular disease.
Right.
For example, cerebral malaria, where it is someone gets a fever, it's not well treated, and then it escalates to that problem. And there is mental illness, which many people know as cerebral malaria. Mental illness can come as a result of circumstances that surround or prevail. You know, most of us know mental illness when someone has come to the end of it. They're either not connecting in speech, they have become violent, they're undressing. You know, that is at the extreme. But many people we live with have mental illness, but has not reached to what we commonly as Africans observe.
Right.
So it can come as a result of an accident, and someone goes through an accident and they have not done enough scans to identify something that has not gone well with the brain, so that is treated in time and doesn't cause that challenge of not functioning as normal. So those are some of the circumstances that can bring in where we see mental illness coming. There is disease, there could be accidents, but then there are also circumstances within the surrounding. For example, a woman who is undergoing a lot of stress or torture. You know, domestic violence takes a lot of forms, but usually I talk of beating.
Beating, emotional.
But there are many women in their marriages, not to say that for the men it doesn't happen, but statistics show women more, that are sick, mentally sick in their marriages. What they have gone through, not to say that the singles don't go through that, but you see in this commitment, and it's only the outer people who may say, but that person, because of the hell this person has taken them through, all in not even the person, the situations that they have met. Maybe this was a child of another status.
Right.
Love brought them together. What she's going through, you know, some it's because of close religion. You know, you're Muslim, I'm a Catholic. You're Muslim, I'm born again. We still have those things. Then the family turns against you and things. So you lack where to run to. Now that generates the continuous stress of the brain, generates into a form of mental illness.
Yes, indeed. Now let's focus on addictions. You know, you've painted the picture of what takes place emotionally, domestic violence, beatings, or situations that could affect our mental capacities in how we function, especially in families. One of the things that these things do is they could easily lead to indulgences for different individuals. And indulgences could include alcohol, drugs, or whatever form of indulgence, which eventually leads to an addiction. So let's take a look at how addictions intersect with mental health, especially for families.
Now, first, when I talk about addictions, I'm going to give you two scenarios. There are people who deliberately move themselves in harm's way to get addicted. Because by the time you become an addict, that means you can now no longer live without that. I want to give you an example. There are what we call social drinkers. That, Judy, I may not be drinking. I can't even spend a year without drinking. But if there is a party, I can take 1 or 2 or 4.
Yeah.
And I go, and you will never see me crave for alcohol. I can only take it because it's a social event people are taking. I may not be a smoker. I can do without smoking. But if I meet chaps and shisha is around, I may ask and take. But I cannot crave for shisha. I can even spend a year or I may not be consuming weed or ice or any of those things. So there are those people. Or I may be having control over. So now when we talk about addictions, this is the extreme where that person will crave for that thing, that substance. And usually addictions, we have those on drugs, But also let's not forget alcohol. Because we've also had so many people who become alcoholics, and they are taken up and they are addicted to alcohol and they have to go to rehab. Much as you have those who take these drugs, marijuana, of late there is ice, very dangerous, and then they end up to that extreme. Now, how do these two connect? Some people begin certain things to solve situations that we've not handled very well. I want to tell you there are many people who've gotten addicted because they went into drinking thinking they're solving a problem. That the prevailing situations, usually your marriage breaks, it's destroyed, you know. You don't have proper counseling to hold you up. And you slowly start by saying, let me take some booze, I forget this person. By the end of 3 months, you're addicted to alcohol. But you never chose to start alcohol. There were situations that prompted you. There's someone who will go into drugs because they have lost hope, they have lost their future, they don't understand what is happening, and they want to look for, what do I call it, redress or solace, comfort. All of us around them are judgmental, and where they feel that when you take this, you know, there's a person I know who was going through a hard time, and she's resorted to taking drugs so that she can sleep, you know, to solve a situation, because she would think allegedly. She would think and think, but if... So there are those that start these substances and get addicted, but when there are situations that have drove them into that, some it's us not being sensitive to and see that, or us, even us, the people around them, push them. That when someone comes to you, and I know, for example, I'll use the issue of marriage. When someone comes to you, you begin condemning.
Right.
In Uganda, where I come from, there's a time where they condemn a woman for the cheating of the husband. How does your marriage fail? Me, your auntie have been for 40 years. How about you?
And this blame is not put on the man.
Yes, but this person, so where this person lacks where to run to.
Right.
Someone tells him,
sticking with families, let's also look into the fact that some of these addictions are initiated by family members. I have a friend who actually was introduced to alcohol by, I think, an uncle.
Now, that is the second time. First was those that situations take them to.
And end up indulging, yes.
There are those that it's by choice. That's Judy. You wake up and you're like, Friday, let me go to that bar. So, but what is in alcohol? By choice. I see people smoke. Let me try out shisha. Then from shisha, you've gone into ice, taking ice. Laboratory manufactured. Now you're living natural and all that. So you've made a choice, you yourself. There are those that I would say maybe they are indoctrinated. The father drinks. You're introduced to it by a family member,
right,
or by peer pressure, by choice. Now, these addictions, those two areas, circumstance, someone introducing them, and you taking it by choice, saying, no, I want to begin doing this, no, but you decide, and at the end of the day, you lose the control, you become addicted. So those are three areas where people rush into this. And how family comes in, that is a very big challenge.
Right. 0709602592. Those are the numbers. That is the number, WhatsApp number, to which you can share your opinion as we talk about breaking stigma and silence on mental health. But in particular, we are looking at how it is affecting families. Now, Robert, you've shared quite a picture, especially in regards to emotional cycles, emotional abuse or domestic abuse, or situations that people go through and stay silent or are judged, and the end result for them is to stick to what they indulge in, thus becoming addictions. But let's also talk about the generational trauma and cycles of silence in regards to issues like this, and this comes with shame, particularly for families. We've seen families where drinking is a thing. Someone says that, after all, my father drinks, my uncles drink, and before you know it, my grandfather drinks. My great-grandfather was also someone who loved the bottle. But yet the underlying effect is there are things that are not being dealt with, either the parenting style, there are traumas that are not being addressed. There are shameful conversations that are not being addressed in the family, and it goes on and on and on.
Now, one thing that must be clear is all these addictions lead to mental illness. And many of them at the end of the day have even led to committing suicide. Now, this silence becomes a very big problem. How, one, Africans will fail to understand that mental illness, I want to use the word illness, is a disease that can come as a result of what we have talked about, but also it can happen as sickness that maybe sometimes we don't even have how best we can explain that. But we've not accepted that these people are now vulnerable and they need help. You know, in Africa, it is a shame. Some people call it a curse for someone to be mentally sick. Someone can even use it. Those people's family, they have bagweddaru. In Africa, and some families even tend to hide these people. Hide them. People tend to distance themselves. And people tend to keep quiet of sometimes the causes they could have addressed to prevent this from happening. Silence is a big problem. It has been something that has escalated mental challenges, mental illnesses in our country here. That, Julie, someone saying, I think I should take my son to a counselor. I should take my son to a
rehabilitation, yes.
Rehabilitation center. Biswaza, we don't. We feel it is a shame. Now, even if, are you aware that even someone committing suicide
is deemed as a curse?
A curse, and we condemn. Last Sunday but one, someone committed suicide in my property.
And now that person is a statistic. Sad.
I was sleeping, of course at my father's place, but something that I was sleeping around, and I get a phone call, because every Sunday all the children of my mom and dad, we meet every last Sunday, every first Sunday of the month. We meet for prayer and discussing. So I was sure I was going home for that meeting. It's at usual at 10. Around 9, I see my father calling me 1,000 times. I wake up, I'm like, no, Mzee, I'm on my way. He says, no, trouble has occurred. I'm like, what? What is it? Is mommy fine? Please. What? Someone has committed suicide on the jackfruit after my fence entering to you. Like, I flew, I didn't drive, I flew. Go to this place. Of course, people had gathered. But everyone was making a statement. You know what that means? A curse has come on your land. Now, this tree was giving me very, very good jackfruit. Told me, and that tree must be cut. You get it? You can't. Then, funny enough, how tradition is how certain things are very funny. When police came and cut this boy, people fought for that rope.
Why?
Things are funny. I saw blows.
All right. Now that, yes.
They are condemning the act.
Right.
It is a curse. This boy, I was told how he was buried. They just threw him there like a dog, then put soil, then I got a hen. And, you know, it's a curse.
So that speaks into how tradition and culture also perceives matters of mental health and
Yes.
and anything addiction and suicide. But now let's go deeper into how families and let's start with nuclear families because it's where most of us come from. Your mother, your father, or your guardian, your siblings. How are families enabling mental health disorders? If you ask me one of the ways that families are enabling mental health disorders, we can start with a refusal to heal from the past, where hurt generations are pouring into the generations ahead. Your grandmother grew up bitter, was tortured, had a bitter marriage, and because of that pain, they pass it on to your mother. And most times people don't know. They don't know. It's just a way of reacting to what life presents to them. And before you know it, your mother, who was hurt by their mother, who was hurt by their grandmother, pours that same hurt into you. And you realize at the end of the day, healing is rare in most families, but ends up affecting generations and generations. But speak more from what you perceive from your vantage. How are families enabling mental health disorders?
First and foremost, families are not accepting and living in denial that mental health is real and we should embrace mental health. Many think maybe someone should have committed a crime. Yabba, nebamuloga, you know. Some now, we even have people who think that this is a child maybe from soft parenting.
Yes.
Now, these are just, then families, here most of us African families are families. Mental health, for example, if you tell someone, she's going through stress. I'm stressed of late. Think that person is going through depression. These are things we see. You're not just hardened for the world. You're not hardened. These are things we all go through. So first and foremost, the fact that we do not accept that these are things we should take serious. We are complacent. This is how we've been living. Survival for the fittest. You're just weak. If someone loses a job and begins deteriorating, the stress, the depression, someone will say, people have lost jobs. See us all say, you know. Just bring yourself together.
You say that, and you remind me once upon a time, I was having a conversation with this generation, the generation that I've been raised, lacks fathers. Many fathers haven't been in the lives, in many of our lives. And as I was addressing this, that it affects everyone, be it a boy child or a girl child, and it speaks into some of the decisions you make or how you grow or how you think about life. Somebody was like, sigwa sose. You know that perspective of you're not the first to grow up without a dad, yet the reality is growing up without a father hits so bad and it affects generations and generations.
So that is the first challenge we have.
Yeah.
That for us, this is not something we are taking serious.
Right.
It is like you're either a weakling and style up, get to the right level of reality, but also the shame we attach as families. You know, that when we see such things, we, instead of saying we have to stand with you, we want to be away from you. The namings, so and so has 2 sons, but there's one Agwedaru, you know, there's one. So these greatly affect and escalate this problem. That way I would have embraced it very fast, prevented it very fast. We don't. Now, people leave and commit suicide. I'll go back to that young boy. He was a senior 4 candidate, belonging to a single mother, very known within the community. A young lady who has hustled with her children. Of course, the father is present but absent.
Right.
Now, this boy committed some offenses at school. And he was sent home to come back, I'm told, with the mother. But the mother has been this tough woman who can beat and thoroughly beat. You know, those mothers, and even the whole community knows. Now the boy came and told the mother, I've been sent home for school fees. The mother got the balance and gave the young man to go back to school. But the young man, should my mother know that I have issues at school and I've been sent back, Mom is going to beat me like crazy. So he left home saying he had gone back to school. The young man didn't go back to school. School also knew how tough the mother was, because I think maybe one time she went and delivered justice. You know, some schools have that, a parade, and then they beat you and they think it is justice. Now, the school did not carry out the role. Why is this boy like that?
So you notice that even the society, that the spaces that raise children encourage mental health disorders, right from family into the communities that children spend their times. And all of this ultimately is affecting family. Remember that family is the first unit that builds a nation. And if mental health disorders, if things or elements that cause mental health disorders within one individual are not dealt with, that means a whole country is affected. Now, looking into your comments, this is Eyamo Isaac from Ochero. Big up, thank you for the program. And somebody else comes through and says, good morning, Julie and Robert. In third world countries like Uganda, the major cause of mental illness is poverty, which stretches to idleness, peer pressure, domestic violence, overdrinking, drug abuse, witchcraft, depression, etc., hence resulting into mental illnesses. There is nothing that tortures much psychologically like being poor. So need to fight the high levels of unemployment for starters, then the rest will be mitigated. This is Cricket Derek Gagamel from Machindie Luafu. And I do agree with you.
To a certain extent, I disagree with Cricket.
Why?
Because one, I want to tell you, most of the issues of mental illness are preventable, even without money.
Okay.
Most. And I just want to remind him that if you go to these rehabilitation centers that are happening of late,
Right.
you'll find how many children coming from Class A families are there.
That's true. That's
I want
also
to
true.
tell you just that we conceal things. If you go to these people in the corporate world, how many of their children are suffering with addictions? How many of their children are mentally sick? If the suicidal tendencies we are talking about, I want 90% of these could be preventable. And I want to tell you, you may never know how many of these are committing suicide. I remember, because when something is published, it's public knowledge. Go and look. There was a minister whose son killed himself when they had gone, I think it was for a trip. Now, checking his room. These reports were in the media.
Right.
I want to mention and open fresh wounds. So, poverty may be a contributor, but if society prioritizes, is well sensitized, you see, we can detect these things.
Right.
We can detect, we can prevent. But what happens when you are complacent? What happens when you are like, just be battle hardened? Yet, are you aware that many poor people have survived mental illness because of religion? Where someone has issues and they run to their pastor,
Yet
they
in
run
some
to
spaces,
the priest.
in some spaces,
Yes.
religion has also led to people
Yes,
having
but
mental.
by and large, I'm not saying this because I am one of them.
Yes.
But you don't know how many good pastors have saved situations through prayer, counseling, that the people go and they pay no penny. For the right pastors, leave alone this crop of funny people we don't understand.
And that obviously applies for the poor and the rich. All
Yes.
access the right pastors for healing and therapy. But I think let's close this. I will say this. In my opinion, the take home for me is heal. Choose healing. Choose healing. When you choose healing as a family, when you choose healing as an individual, you're doing it for your children and the generations thereafter, and altogether for Uganda. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
was brought to you by.
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, baby, dondolo.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Okwongera okuyiga ebikwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza abagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole ekiwooza URA.
Na kapitalu ya mitwalo 5 mwagala buli kitendo omuntu asasuleko omutwalo.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa nafika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongea. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako naweka kwa drawer na.
Okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 0794188887. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva ewa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'okenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
I'm Kisame Andrew, cold chain technician. Attached to Kalio District Local Government in the health department. The vaccines come when they're in the truck, which is refrigerated from NMS. I receive them, so I load these vaccines. There are some cold boxes I put in those containers, then I take to the facilities. Even in the facilities, there are fridges. We are so grateful to the government of Uganda because each and every health center 3 and 4 in Kalio district has a refrigerator. Once they reach there, I offload them. I also put them in the fridges. These facilities have scheduled outreaches whereby they have to go to the community, to the villages, communities, and make sure that they vaccinate. So they also have small containers which are called vaccine carriers, which they put on their back, of course with some ice to maintain the temperature. So that when they mobilize, the community mobilizers, the VHTs, the LOC ones do mobilize, the communities in gazetted outreaches which are already gazetted, they come and also workers find the clients there and then they give vaccinate them.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Was brought to you by.
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, baby, dondolo.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
otyo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 0794148887. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva ewa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
Choose healing, and that was just about mental health. You know, Nelson Mandela once said, it always seems impossible until it's done. Well, good morning, and thank you once again for choosing UBC. My name is Zakia Lucky, and we are on Good Morning Uganda Tourism Express. This morning, we are going to be talking about the power of visual storytelling in tourism and social media. And creating memories has been one of the many ways as to why many people take pictures, create videos, and interestingly, there is a new trend of storytelling, which is mostly done on social media. With me this morning is Nyaika Edwin, who is the digital creator and team leader Nyaika Studios. He's going to be helping us digest this topic, and I assume most of you have seen his work and how his videos have been visualizing the beauty of Uganda. Good morning, Nyaika.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. I'm so happy to have you with me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I know many people are actually excited to hear from you because you've really inspired so many with the work that you're doing. Please say hello to them.
Good morning, Kampala. I hope you made it to office or you're tuned in and watching live. I'm excited to be here and share with you some insights about tourism. So happy to be here.
Yes, like I said, I have seen most of your work visualize the beauty of Uganda. And there's so many people that have looked up to it. So many have actually tried to come out and do something close to what you are doing. And how did your journey begin in visual storytelling, and how you've captured Uganda and putting in tourism in the creative focus?
All right, so long story or short story? Long version or long version? All right, so around 2017, I started joining my brother, Dr. William, on his trips. Actually, they were not trips, they were events. He used to do birthday parties and so on and so forth. So I would join him, and eventually I learned how to take pictures. And fast forward, there is this group, it's an orphanage, I think you know, it's called Grace Villa, it's based in Kabale. So they organized this fundraiser trip. As I joined it, we went to Kabale, Bwindi, and then that's where my love for tourism started from. So I went up the hill, came back, next time went to Kidepo, and because I'd started doing photography, I had a camera on me at all times. So I started capturing these beautiful mountains, animals, wildlife, and so on and so forth. Next thing I know, I love taking wildlife because animals do not ask questions when you take their pictures. You guys ask a lot of questions. Why are you taking my picture? You're going to put it. So I started, you know, I got hooked into wildlife. So I was on every other trip that, you know, was being organized. So that's how we ended up here.
And we've seen most of it obviously on social media. And how has social media helped in promoting the tourism industry in regards to your work or the content that you have created?
All right. So as Ugandans, not all of us, but most of us don't like to visit our local tourist spots. Most of you guys want to go to Dubai, Sijui, Mombasa, whatever.
Zanzibar.
Exactly. But in Uganda, we have very many beautiful places that you could actually go and be more, get better value for your money, or be more fulfilled. So because there's not enough people showing you these places, you don't get to do it, to be excited or pick interest in seeing these places. The only places you see on the internet are the Dubais and whatever. But if there was enough people like Nyaika taking pictures of these places and videos, you will be compelled to actually want to go see these places. So it's really important for people like us to put this content out there on the internet so that you are interested in seeing them too.
And you've done a great job actually in putting out these places, because when we usually post these things, people want to know where is this. They're getting to learn about these places, and they will find eventually interest into visiting them. Now, when we talk about platforms that will effectively promote tourism, what platforms are you talking about that we can use to put on this work?
All right. So I think there are 3 major platforms I would recommend. Meta is not, Facebook is not one of them for obvious reasons. But the main 3 are Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok. But the one with the most traction is, I think, Twitter, because the people on Twitter are most likely to be able to afford these places and go to these places. It has a certain clientele of people who love, their country, who are more interested in going to places like these. The other platforms are Instagram. Not as much, because I have a wildlife page on Instagram, but barely gets any traction. Then TikTok, it's there, but the main platform is X, if you ask me. But the other platforms too are good. Depending on how you execute your content on those platforms, you will get the right traction and target that place to boost tourism.
And how do you tailor your visual content to appeal to both local and international tourism audiences?
How do I tailor my content? So when you're putting your content, or when you're creating your content, you have to eliminate that, you need to have a balance between the international market and the local market. So the international market is more interested in the wildlife animals, the animals themselves. But we, the people here, have already seen these animals in most cases, and we are more interested in the experience attached to these places. So if I'm going to Kidepo, yes, I will see animals, but what else is going to, in the afternoon when the animals have gone to rest, in the shed, what else am I doing during that time? That's why the aspect of the nice bandas, the nice lounges at these places, the swimming pool at Apoka, and is it Apoka? The other lodge comes in, So these are the experiential amenities in these places are what most of the locals will be interested in, as opposed to the animals, these are amenities. But then again, the international clientele wants to see the wildlife. They want to come and make sure by the time they leave, they have seen all the cuts. So you have to balance between what are you showing? Am I showing you people swimming in the pool after a long game drive? Or am I showing you the most epic picture of a cat devouring a leopard, an antelope? So you have to find a balance between those two.
And maybe you can share a story or a project that did create or put you out there in the tourism industry.
Okay. I think there are 2. The first one, me and my boys organized a trip to Kidepo. Is my favorite game park, but it's also very far. But we organized a trip to Kidepo, and before then, I'd never seen a lion up close feasting on a buffalo or carcass. They used to point. I'm like, you see that over there, that tail wagging? That's a lion there sitting. So this time around, we do a game drive in our private car. That way we know we don't have to be, we are not rushed. So we find this lion next to its carcass. I don't know if they'll find those pictures, but it was next to the huge buffalo carcass, and I think they had been feasting on it for about 12 hours. The lion was, I think, injured because it was limping, so they left it on guard duty while the other lions went to rest during daytime. So I had about 30 minutes of taking epic pictures of this lion. So far, my best pictures thus far. However, the main story was Explore West. We did a round tour across the Western region. It was, at that time I was working with the Talent Africa Group. I got to see most of these cultural sites, there's game parks on that side, crater lakes and so on and so forth in a span of just 3 days. So I feel like that was my favorite trip so far, and I did the most content in that, on that trip. So diverse, straight from animals to amenities, lakes, mountains and all that. It was all encompassed in that. I met so many of our artists and celebrities, so by far my best.
I think that one came in as a blessing to many of us. It was also one of those where I was the highlight during the very particular event. Yes, Ms. Tourism Chugezi. Now, when we go back to social media, how do you measure the success of a campaign or a post that is being put up on social media?
All right. So, how I personally measure success of a campaign, yeah? Let me first bring it back from the topic at hand. If we say go for Abraham's branch, right? And we do a whole bunch of content, but when you scroll 2 days later, 3 days later, when you're scrolling through your socials and you see a picture or a video, even without the hashtag, yeah, and you're able to identify that this was the Kampala style branch, yeah, that is success to me. So most of these campaigns, we don't necessarily have to put explore Uganda, visit Uganda, do this and that. No. Yes, we have to for numbers, but imagine a scenario where you see a picture of a silverback, and at the back of your mind, you're like, this must be Uganda. Why? Because we know that it's Congo, Rwanda, and Uganda where these silverbacks are, but for reasons, Congo is usually not in this conversation. Rwanda is a bit more expensive, so the first country that comes to your mind is Uganda, because that's where most people come to see these gorillas. So I feel like if that was a campaign and the first thing that comes to your mind is Uganda, when you think about Arsenal as a Uganda, as a supporter in Uganda or Africa, the first thing that comes to your mind is visit Rwanda, because they're sponsors, yeah? But even without saying it, at the back of your mind, you know. So I feel like if we had something or a campaign that made you feel that way when you look at a particular subject or game park, that is a success.
We have to do quite more with branding.
Yes,
now,
please.
You are a creative.
Yeah.
And how can creatives be a part of preserving or promoting cultural tourism in digitalization?
All right. So, hi guys. It's me again. Now, you as a creative, the white man is not going to come here and show off your game parks. When they come here, they tell their own stories, yeah? If he's coming here, he's either doing it for a movie or he's doing it for his own exhibition, gallery or something. He's not trying to market your country. He's doing it for himself. And if he does, he will just mention or share it with his friends, and that is it. However, you as a Ugandan, it's your job to put your country on the map, yeah? If you take those nice pictures and nice videos, it's your job to put them out there so that these people see them. So no one's going to do that for you, at least not for free, but you can do it for your country free of charge.
And how can visual storytelling shape the perception of tourism destination Uganda?
All right. So sometimes, remember back then when the northern region was a bit unstable, there is a couple of us who are not very curious or do not give enough time to find out what the hell is happening up there. So in our mind, we are still in that, Konyi is probably still in this region, or when I'm trying to go to Kidepo, what's their name? The Kejongs will try to, attack me, which is not true, but you think it's true because you're not informed or you do not take time to find out things for yourself. Yeah. So it is still our job, and it's your job to find out that these places are safe. And when you do, please share those stories so that people like your brother or your maid who do not have time to find out also know that these places are actually safe, and what they know about them is probably not true, and can go find out for themselves.
That is a very nice one, because we've seen a lot of Ugandans misuse social media, especially in putting down the beauty of Uganda. If you didn't get that, make sure you do enough research. But even if it's happening there, I don't think that is the worst. I mean, every country does get that happening, but people are putting out good things about their countries. If we are to weigh, the good outweighs, you know, the bad that is happening, which I think is a call for everyone that is using social media.
Yeah, I've been to all these places, and I can guarantee, I've been to every corner of this country except Kalangala, and I can confirm the worst that has ever happened to me or our people is maybe a flat tire. That's the worst that has ever happened. But us getting into any of those, no. And if it happens like once in 5 years, where you will hear a story of, you know, some unfortunate story. But it's a very safe place to go, Uganda.
And talking about that, let's get into the challenges that you face as you try to visualize this content in tourism.
So, all right. I've been fortunate enough to have most of the things I need to be able to tell my stories and execute. However, the first challenge I experienced in telling some of these stories was one, equipment is very expensive. Getting these cameras and videos and also drones into the country, especially drones, it's very, it's impossible to get them here. It's very hard. And 90% of the time, we are going to use them for good. We do not have bad intentions for using these devices, but there is that misconception that intentions are bad. So you find yourself not being able to, you know, have some of the tools you need to tell these stories. Two, equipment is very expensive. And finally, sometimes access to these places is tricky. Say, for example, Kidepo, it's a 500-kilometer route, but you find yourself doing over 13 hours just to get there.
Okay, let's give our parting shots to those that want to look up to you and do well in the tourism industry. All
right. Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. If you are trying to get into content creation or the tourism industry, it's, first of all, it's very fulfilling. It's not the most lucrative for you as a content creator, but it's very fulfilling. It's a good, what do I call it? It would be nice to have it in your portfolio as a content creator, and also do it for the love of your country.
It's very fulfilling. Well, it's been Good Morning Uganda discussing the story of visualizing all this in the tourism industry. We are still on Good Morning Uganda. Stick around, and we are coming in for the business segment with Julie Nantama.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Okwongera okuyiga ebikwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza abagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole ekiwooza URA.
Na kapitaani ya mitwalo 5 mwagala buli kitendo omuntu asasuleko omutwalo.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa fika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect, lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongee. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako na kwa drawer na.
Okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 0794 14 18 87. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva wa Kamisona General URA John Musinguzi. laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza kamiisona.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
And at about 5 minutes on to 8 a.m. East African time here in Kampala, Uganda, time for GMU Business. Welcome back from the Tourism Express. And we are starting off with Women in Banking. The Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services has come with a bill that seems to regulate the banking and financial services profession. Now, the CEO Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services, Goreti Masede, says that the aim is to regulate the professionals in the sector through strengthening standards. And the Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services bill, when approved by Parliament, will regulate the banking and financial services profession. This was echoed during the second edition of Women in Banking and Financial Conference in Kampala. And it was the second edition of this particular conference. Rampara, Member of Parliament, also Chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Finance and Planning, Amos Kankunda, represented the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among. The CEO, Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services, Goreti Masede, says that Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services bill, if passed into law, will set standards for the professionals in the sector. During the conference on the theme Accelerating Women's Leadership and Influence in Banking and Finance, women leaders wanted more women empowered to take on leadership roles in the financial services sector. Empowering women in banking and the financial sector will unlock Uganda's economic potential. Now, looking at matters why bus, it was suspended. Its operations were suspended as of yesterday evening at 7 p.m. following the two fatal accidents registered on the 5th of May when YY bus registration number UAV 701C was involved in a fatal accident at Naja Village, Buikwe district on Kampala-Katosi-Jinja Highway, which claimed 3 lives recently. And the second accident involved YY bus registration number UAX 852 heading to Yumbe from Kampala and was involved in a serious crash at Ayango on Pakwach Arua Highway. The State Minister for Works and Transport, Byamukama, told the media in Kampala the preliminary reports indicated overspeeding and reckless driving among the drivers. And while suspending the operation of YY buses, the minister said that they expect YY Bus Company Limited to present the drivers involved in the 2 crashes to Commissioner Transport Regulation and Safety, and he further stressed that YY companies should avail all their buses to the Joint Inspection Team by Uganda Police Force Directorate of Traffic and Ministry of Works and Transport for re-inspection after the expiration of the ban. Now, moving on, the MV Kalangala, a vital ferry serving Kalangala Sese Islands in Lake Victoria, has temporarily suspended operations to undergo essential maintenance. This pause aims to ensure the vessel's safety, reliability, and continued service to the community. The head of National Oil Distributor Company, Sadala Musoke, told UBC that during this period, passengers and cargo transport may be affected and alternative arrangements have been implemented. The maintain is expected to last for 45 days, and travelers with heavy cargo have been advised to use Masaka-Bukakata route to connect to Kalangala and Sese Island. The traders under their body, Kampala City Traders Association, KASITA, have come out and expressed concern to URA for increasing taxes on goods and removing the gropage cargo system. This follows URA's release of a document dated April 24th this year, halting the groupage cargo system unless one possesses documentation showing the exact contents of their cargo. During a press conference, traders led by Kasita chairperson Thaddeus Musoke expressed dissatisfaction, saying that this decision will greatly burden small-scale traders. Well, now let's look at the forex rates as of 13th May 2025, and the US dollar opened at 3,655.00 and was selling at 3,665.00. By midday, it had dropped value there with 3,654.86 and selling at 3,664.86, and closed in at 3,654.91, a little increase there, and selling at 3,664.91. The British pound was buying at 4,822.65 and selling at 4,835.86. And the euro was buying at 4,059.50 and selling at 4,070.61. And the Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.27 and selling at 28.35. And the Tanzanian shilling still maintaining 1.35, buying and selling at 1.35 selling. And the South African rand was buying at 200.22 and selling at 200.76. Well, that's it from Good Morning Uganda Business. Up next is the agenda, and we are looking at matters cooperatives in Uganda. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Was brought to you by
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, baby, don't know.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
okwongera okuyiga ebikwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza abagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole kiwooza URA.
Na kapita ya mitwalo 5 ngakala buli kitendo muntu asasuleko mutwalo.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa fika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongee. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako naweka kwa drawer na
okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 079 14 18 87. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva wa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
Mukoke Fish Farmers Association tuli balunzi ba byananda ebyebika ebisatu omuli Miracap, tilapia oba engege ni catfish twete male. Group eno twatandika twali abantu basatu nga tulingirira obwetaavu obwebyenanda obw'obwivu eno okubona nti tufuna okasente akava mu maadi agali gatambula nga tupita kuwano ng'ekirabo. Twatandika ni fish pond ndala mu mwaka gw'e2018. Twebaza fisheries officer ni district ya Bugiri babanga batulagirira kusani fish farm ebwikwe inside day ndeyo twabanga tusobola okufuna twetusaako obugege obwasooka era mu mwaka ogwali 2020 awo basobola okuba nga batuwaayo ebyenanda emitwalo $40 okuva mu operation wealth creation. Era okuva ayongerezaako emmere yatuweebwa okuva Uganda Poultry Breeders. Twasobola okuba nga tusoloza akasente akawerera obukayire nga 42. Twasobola okuba nga tubuinvestinga oba okubona nti twongerezaako ku bimu ku bintu bye tukola gano. Bebaza gavumenti yaife okuba nga buli saawa efaayo okuba nga efe eri Abannayuganda.
Kisame Andrew, cold chain technician, attached to Kalio District Local Government in the Health Department. The vaccines come when they're in the truck, which is refrigerated from NMS. I receive them, so I load these vaccines. There are some cold boxes I put in those containers, then I take to the facilities. Even in the facilities, there are fridges. We are so grateful to the government of Uganda because each and every health center 3 and 4 in Kalio district has a refrigerator. Once they reach there, I offload them. I also put them in the fridges. These facilities have scheduled outreaches whereby they have to go to the community, to the villages, communities, and make sure that they vaccinate. So they also have small containers which are called vaccine carriers, which they put on their back, of course with some ice to maintain the temperature. So that when they mobilize, the community mobilizers, the VHTs, the LOC ones do mobilize the communities in gazetted outreaches which are already gazetted. They come and also workers find the clients there and then they do vaccinate them.
Ghetto structure okusooka ffe twali twepima nga ghetto structure tenabeerawo bali batugoba nga bintu si byakubeera nga tusobola okumiitinga mwali temusobola na kutumiitinga batulaga bagenda tulondesa obukulembeze ne batulaga nti tulina okweteekateeka ne batulaga nti mu bayamba mulina okubeera ne sako era essaawa zino eno n'akasente tukayina mwe kali mu ofiisi tukakozesa ba beneficiaries abantu ab'omu ghetto wansi. Tuyanziza nnyo His Excellency the President of Uganda, Brigadier General Damulira, Major Emma Kuteesa, House Controller, anti-ghetto, tumuyita anti-ghetto. Structure kati mulimu nze nagufuula mulimu. Office eno ghetto structure mulimu kati gwenkola. Sikyalina kyenkola kyonna. Bannaye ba ghetto youth mwenna bakubiriza ghetto structure yazze n'emikono ebiri ebeere ng'etuyambako oba ng'etujjayo yonna gye tuli ng'etusupportinga mu buli kimu. Veeyo akasente mwe kali mu ofiisi ak'okwekulaakulanya mutuukire ofiisi ensonga zammwe zonna zigenda kukolebwako.
Nsooka okwebaza omukulembeze w'eggwanga okututeekateeka. Twali tetunnaba kuteekebwateekebwa, twafuna okusoomoozebwa nga kungi nnyo. Omuli okutukwata abasirikale, olumu nga tetulina na kitukoze. Kale nga n'akasente k'oba osonzeewo ggwe nga ggwe akagenda okukuyambako mu bizibu byo, nga weekanga okawadde abasirikale. Naye okuva ffe ghetto structure we yayimirirawo ebintu bingi byakyuka. Abaana baffe tebakyabakwata nnyo okuggyako abo abamenyi b'amateeka. Ne be bakutte nga babakwatidde mu ghetto nga ekikwekweto kibadde kiyise. Nabo tulina omukisa ogugenda okubaggyayo. Abasirikale batuwulira. Abasirikale batuwulira. Toyinza kugenda ku poliisi n'ogamba DPC nti bakutte omwana wange ng'akumanyi nti oli komanda. N'atateekayo nnyo maanyi kukola ki? Kumugyayo. Nsooka okwebaza omukulembeze w'eggwanga okututeekateeka. twali tetunnaba kuteekebwateekebwa twafuna okusoomoozebwa nga kungi nnyo omuli
Pick of the day on UBC. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster. Was brought to you by
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, baby, dondolo.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondolo. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
okwongera okuyiga ebikwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza abagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole ekiwooza URA.
nakapitamu ya mitwalo 5 ngakara buli kitendo omuntu asasuleko omutwalo.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa nafika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongea. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako naweka kwa drawer na
okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 0794-14-88-87 olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva ewa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
The circle started 5 years back with 15 members who were part of the executive, and we managed to use the same 15 members to mobilize the youth and come in to make the 16 associations. So each member took a thought of gathering, mobilizing the 15 people to make associations. So the circle was established. We happened to have 229 members that qualified for 30 millions, which we got in 2021. We used the 30 millions from the presidential initiative to buy the 6 motorcycles, which was a small number to benefit the 229 members, but we managed to use it. The 6 border helped us to go under saving culture. We managed to group our members into 15-15 for saving culture. So the saving culture is 15 groups. They could get 12,000 per day, which 12,000 at the end of the month manages to buy 1 motorcycle. That 1 motorcycle is shared among the 15, so they vote who to take it. The 15 kept on until the 15 months. Every member had to get 1 motorcycle with saving culture. As I say, we managed to get 84 motorcycles from today's report. On daily, a rider, you move Kawempe, Nakawaru, Makinde, you Kampala Metropolitan, and at the end of the day, you have 50,000. That one, we call it average day. There is a time you make 100, that is, we call it the golden day. So most of our members came without anything to use or to support their family. So we helped them by giving them the border as one of the job opportunity the circle is offering to the community.
Tuso kwebaza President Museveni olw'enkola eno gyatutereddewo otukulaakulanya nga najja wano mu ssaka eno nga sirina piki era ndi omu ku bammemba abaasooka okufuna no piki. Kati abavubuka abali bateesobola kugula piki wano kiba kyangu. Ogula buguzi migabo mitwalo 5 ng'ofuna piki.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for choosing to be on UBC TV here to inspire you. My name is Julie Nantaba Mosisi, and as every Wednesday, it is our duty to present to you everything about cooperatives so that you learn a lot and you're able to be inspired as well as grow your finances and your future. And this Wednesday is not any different. Now, this Wednesday, we shall be talking about generating growth opportunities for women through cooperatives. And in studio with me is Miss Justine Kayinza. She is the head of partnerships, Uganda Cooperative Alliance Limited, and Mr. Enoch Mutambi, who is the skills specialist at the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Now, to be on the show, 0709-602-592. Share your question, share your opinion, share what's on your heart, and let's have this conversation as we learn and relearn. Good morning, Mr. Enoch.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Yes,
and
please.
I'm glad to be here.
Right. Good morning, Miss Justine.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming.
Dear viewers, you're welcome.
Right. Now, I will start with Miss Justine for purposes of our viewer who has just joined UBC, who's watching us for the very first time, and who has keen interest in cooperatives but doesn't have a clear idea. Please do share a brief background on what cooperatives are and how they operate, especially in Uganda.
Yes. Thank you so much. For our viewers, a cooperative is an association of persons, or I can say it's a group of persons who come together with a common goal. This can be social, at times it's political, and they must be united by a common enterprise. They have an enterprise that brings them together. Say maybe if they are journalists, then that's what brings the journalism brings them together. If they are farmers, maybe they need to advocate for prices of their products. So they have a common agenda that brings them together. And globally, cooperatives operate on 7 principles. These principles are universal. We have free and open membership, democratic control, member economic participation. There is autonomy. Cooperatives they run independently. We train our members, training, education. Then we have cooperation among cooperatives. We learn from each other. And finally, we also give back to community, which we call concern for community. So basically, that is it on just a quick summary.
Still on still with a brief background, how do cooperatives differ from other forms of business, especially community organization type of businesses in Uganda?
Cooperatives, like I've said, people come together with a common interest. So they are bound by a common interest. So if they are taxi drivers, they are bound by what they do.
Right.
If they are farmers, they are bound by that. And then when we come together in cooperatives, we pool our resources. We use our own resources. So it's members who pool the resources, unlike maybe other companies where they will get different shareholders. And thirdly, for us in cooperatives, we run on global principles, the 7 principles. That is it. And when it comes to voting, it's just one member, one vote. We don't, it's not like maybe the majority take it in our annual general meetings. And then, of course, we do account. In our structure of cooperatives, it's the annual general meeting, which is the apex. Then we have the board, the supervisory, the board members, and then management. So for us, we have a defined structure of running our business as a cooperative. Then when we pull our resources, they are there to help us. It's member-owned, member utilized. So we come together, it's from our own resources that we use, it's from us that we benefit and we control. So that's how cooperatives are run. And for us, actually, we don't earn profit as that because it's dividends, what we get as surplus from our, maybe if it's a circle, from what we have invested. So that's how we differ from other forms of maybe companies and associations.
Right. Now, let me come to you, Mr. Enoch Mutambi. What role does the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development play in having women get involved in cooperatives in Uganda?
Thank you so much. The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is in charge of very many aspects, including the women affairs and including labor, including social justice and many others. And the ministry plays a number of roles to encourage women to form and join cooperatives. One of the areas includes funding, specific funding that goes to some of those units. We have a number of programs in the ministry. You know about Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Program, the YLP, and all those. And they do fund some of the cooperatives that are owned by women. And recently there is the GROW project, which is a new project funded by World Bank, and it focuses on women. But specifically, these cooperatives have to be for women. At least 51% of the ownership has to be by women. That's when they there are many aspects in which we support the cooperatives, similarly to other businesses. And the under GROW project, one of the areas is we support these enterprises with the business development services. For instance, there might be a cooperative. First of all, remember, this cooperative, the majority ownership has to be women. This cooperative can gain access to business development services, including, for instance, they are producing a product, they want, let's say, standard certification, that's UNBS. The project can support them through the entire process of certification to get the Q mark from UNBS. The other area could be in terms of preparing them in export preparedness. They are producing a product, they want to access export markets, they have not been able, but they have identified a given market. We can support them. We support them to prepare them to be able to export to the outside markets. But also these cooperatives could gain skills, entrepreneurship skills. You know, in Uganda, many times we do business, but the way we do business, we bump into business, do business, make errors here and there, sometimes make mistakes along the way, and then sometimes we learn and we don't unlearn, we continue, and then, so one of the areas where we support businesses, including cooperatives, is the area of essential business skills. We provide them, and the trainings actually started yesterday in Wakiso. And so if there is a cooperative or cooperatives that are owned by women, or where the women are the majority, they can identify a number of them to be trained, and they would be trained in the essential business skills. It's things like simple skills, like record keeping. How do you keep records? How do you market your products? How do you care for customers? How can you use your phone, your smartphone, to do business? All these skills, there is a training that is going on, and it is very, very useful, and cooperatives can gain from this skill. But the other form of learning that the ministry provides under the GROW project is what we call the work placement, so the apprenticeship program. A cooperative that is doing business, and let's say they are into hairdressing or whatever business, and they are still, they require more skills in that area. What we do is that we link them with the established enterprises, and then they select a number of people, and then we take this to the established enterprise, and then they learn by doing. They become workers within that enterprise. They work as they learn. And then perhaps the other area that I should mention is under the project GROW, the Generating Growth Opportunities for Women Enterprises, where cooperatives have been supported, is the area of shared facilities. And here specifically there are cooperatives that have already gained. We have an infrastructure grant under the project. The infrastructure grant is that there are people, women who are in business, and one of the challenges they face is they do not have adequate infrastructure to run their enterprises. What we do is we support them with a grant, and to enable them excel in their business. And we've launched this. This was launched by His Excellency the President on 1st of this month in Nakapiripirit. And out of the enterprises, women enterprises that were given grants, 3 of them are cooperative societies. One from Nakapiripirit, Namaru Farmers Produce and Cooperative Society, was given a grant. They are into maize value chain, and they are given support to enable them improve and have modern infrastructure in the maize value addition. The grant was to the tune of 253 million. Then there is Bunyoro Turahamu Cooperative Society in Ichikube district in Bunyoro. This one was given a grant of 435 million. Also, they are into the maize value chain, but also Okere Shia Cooperative Society in Otuke district. This was given a grant of 658 million. They are into the shea value chain, shea butter, into cosmetics, into actually even the supply chain of seeds, and they have been supported. And we believe they are going to do much better because of the grant. And there are so many others who applied, and the process of selecting is continuing. And we believe a number of other cooperative societies will come up and be able to benefit. So there are many, many things we are doing to support the women who are in business, including those who operate under cooperative movement.
Right. To be on the conversation, 0709-602-592. That is a WhatsApp number to which you can engage in on the conversation that we are looking at, that is generating growth opportunities for women through cooperatives. Now, coming to you, Ms. Justine, how has the role of women in cooperatives evolved over the past decades? Let's use the threshold of the past 10 years.
Thank you so much. The cooperative model has indeed seen the rise of women in economic terms, generally through the economy, especially when we talk about evolving. Yes, we are looking at those years back, maybe the 1960s, and the cooperatives are, just picking up. But what I can say is that the cooperative movement or the cooperative model is a model that has penetrated the rural woman, who is the target of, first of all, when you look at the NDP4, we are looking at the household incomes of the rural persons, the rural woman in Otuke, the rural woman in Kabale. So we have seen this model. Well, they might not be cooperatives, or some of them start as village savings schemes. I have seen in my community, in Uganda, where I come from, I've seen women form themselves in smaller groups. They have monthly schedules of who to visit, which items to start with. And that is where we are coming in as Uganda Cooperative Alliance. We are saying that these small savings groups are in these villages, in these communities all over the country. We are encouraging them now to take that up to another level of cooperative formation. I read of a story about Ruchiga Sacco, its formation. They shared that story that Ruchiga Sacco was begun by women in the communities, women who were going through several challenges from domestic violence, you know, the low economic returns. So when they would go out to work, they would come home with their monies. But then, of course, given our African societies, the husbands would take the money, would just ask them to give them the money, whether peacefully or violently, they had to hand over the money. So what these women did, they went to the church, to Father Gaetano, and they began saving the money. So Father, when they explained their plight to Father, they said, Father, we are undergoing domestic violence because of this money, yet we need to save. We have children to, you know, to attend to, we have home needs to take care of. So Father Gaetano began saving this money in small pockets that they offer in churches, small bags. Eventually, when he realized that the money had grown, it was now too much, like they could not fit even in the box where he used to keep. Now, that's how Ruchiga Sacco was began. He said, now why can't we register a cooperative? And that's how the cooperative began. They share, of course, the different members registered formally. So you can now see that women who just began on small scale saving at personal level, they now got into, you know, a bigger circle, which is still running, and it's one of the big circles in this country. So we thank government, first of all, so much for even availing a platform. When you look at our constitution, yes, when you Article 33 about women empowerment, women rights, because there has to be special action. Let's even start from the global. Of course, Uganda is part of the bigger global picture. SDG 5 on empowering women and girls. So these are some of the ways economically in which we can empower our women in these communities. And as Uganda Cooperative Alliance, for us, we are doing this through our mandate. In 2023, we carried out a capacity need for communities in record keeping, the cooperatives. This is what we advocate for. The other one is resource mobilization. We move out there, we lobby any projects, because we're also going for partnerships. That's why you see us invite different organizations, different government entities, where we see opportunities. Ours is to look out for resources. How can women be supported? How can cooperatives? So we thank you so much, sir, for coming on board and, you know, giving us this information, highlighting to the corporators out there that, look, there are opportunities. I'm impressed by the facility grant. Many people didn't know. For me, back home, if I'm taking my home example, I think a few women, not even more than 5, have benefited from such a program. But when UBC avails us such an opportunity, first of all, we are so grateful to the management of UBC, because much as we do capacity building, you know, we reach out to these cooperatives, we couldn't have done it without support from UBC, not to that magnitude. So we thank you so much for that opportunity. So as Uganda Cooperative Alliance, we have even seen the cooperatives now, right? Talked about women, the evolution of this. At first, people thought cooperatives maybe were for low-class women in the villages, but now we can even see cooperative, different forms and types of cooperatives. When you go in the Cooperative Societies Act, I think when you read from section 112 to 124, there are many. We have these ones ranging from water and environment, we have housing cooperatives, we have even health, we even have health cooperatives, workplaces, the professional cooperatives. We are seeing lawyers, we are seeing doctors form cooperatives. So this is how now we are seeing the evolution of cooperatives to even that working class, to that class where we thought for them maybe they have the resources they don't need. But you know, cooperatives, the mode of cooperatives brings us together, and we are pooling resources. These are our own resources. These are resources where we can even decide a minimal interest. We are like, you know, because they are member-owned, member-controlled, and they should benefit us as members. So over the years, we have seen that women in the different spheres of life have also joined cooperatives, but we are still drumming up. We are saying we've not had enough of it. From our findings, I told you about the capacity needs assessment report, we are not to the level where we want participation of women in cooperatives. because it's our own resources. So please, we call upon women to join up take up these spaces in cooperatives, and we also encourage them to take up leadership in these cooperatives, because that's again where decisions are made.
Justine, staying with you, are there particular sectors where women have found more success through the cooperative arrangement?
Yes, like, predominantly Uganda being an agriculture-based country, we have heard of success stories in the cooperative. We have the vice chairperson of Uganda Cooperative Alliance. She's doing well. She's from Nebi. Madame Oroma, Madame Oroma, she's one, Emanuela, she's one of those even who benefited from a sponsorship from the Netherlands government to go and even study. So we have had such studies, like we have such cases in Uganda Cooperative Alliance of unions where women have succeeded. Now that's one of them, and we encourage them. In fact, they are being case studies. They are reaching out to other women in the different parts of the country. We have a profile of them, so from different parts of the country, and we encourage them to keep up, let them, because they're a source of motivation to other women and enterprises which are coming up. And that's why we had to tap into this Grow project. We said, look, we also have these women, those who are in cooperative, but also individual women, still who belong to cooperatives, but have their different, like now when you come to Emyoga, the PDMs, they will give, you can be in a group, but you have your enterprise as you. So we have these success stories, and that's why we are coming out, we are saying, fine, you have moved to this level, now like the Grow project, for each targeting women who are already in production and they are ready to move on. So that's why we're partnering with the Grow project. We're like, please, we have those women who are doing well, who are in cooperatives or as individuals, but now communities, we want them to take up their enterprises to another level.
Right. Coming to you, Mr. Enoch Mutambi, you mentioned that in policy, a cooperative to be a part of the, for example, Grow project has to be 51% female operated. But are there more policies that the government has put in place to ensure that women in cooperatives benefit from what the government is providing for economic growth through the Ministry of Gender?
I would say that it's more of a criteria than well, it's also policy that for Grow project, 50 for entire project, the beneficiaries, because it's a project for women entrepreneurs, those enterprises, they are either wholly owned by women or 51% owned by women to encourage them to benefit from the project. But in addition to that, there are many other things that we are doing in areas of GBV, for instance, because gender-based violence can affect enterprise growth. And especially we realize that as women tend to grow their enterprises, there is a likelihood that this might be associated with increased gender violence. And coming from either way, either men on one side looking at women, the women independence, women involvement in business may bring several other challenges. Maybe she may start coming late, but at the same time also in some cases, when women sometimes get more money, there are some challenges. So we incorporate this in many of our policies. How do we, as women progress, how do we ensure, for instance, that this growth does not result into increased gender-based violence? And within the Grow project, this is incorporated, and it is part and parcel of the trainings that go on, part of the sensitization that we are doing to ensure that as they grow, they do not result into increased gender-based violence. But in addition also, there are several other economic empowerment, women economic empowerment programs that the ministry is running, even outside the Grow project. And there are several. I mentioned earlier about the WEP program, I mentioned about the YLP program, I mentioned about the youth empowerment programs. I mentioned, I think I've not mentioned about, there is another program, the Joakari program, where we support where we support the people who are in business in the informal sector, helping them to transition into the formal enterprises. But within these also, we focus on gender. We focus and say, we look at gender issues, we look at composition of the groups, and women must come out strongly. We, as a ministry, we focus on inclusion, not only focusing on women, but also the ethnic minorities, people with disabilities. All these are catered for under all our programs, all the programs we run, but also making sure that the public outside there get to know about these programs, but also the role that women can play in the development process. So all these we are doing, we do a lot of sensitization to know that when you support a woman, then you are supporting the nation.
All right, staying there with when you support a woman, you support a nation. You did mention that you also make sure as you're planning the criteria that the success of this woman does not also become a source of gender-based violence in her home. And it brings me to a thought. Women are known to be the ones who access religious spaces the most. So is there a chance that the Ministry of Gender is also engaging and walking this journey with religious spaces like churches to help solve the problem of gender-based violence whilst recognizing that women have to economically grow?
We are working with everybody, including the religious institutions, to make sure to provide the safe spaces, but also among the other projects that we run and programs, we encourage to have safe spaces for the victims of the gender-based violence. I mentioned about the infrastructure grants and the common user facilities that we are providing. Each of the infrastructure grant, each of the common user facility, the production facility, we emphasize that there has to be provision for a safe space for the victims of the gender-based violence. We are also going further to emphasize that all enterprises, it would be good if all enterprises had safe spaces and provisions for counseling. There has to be some provision for counseling to make sure that the victims are brought back into the realm so that they do, it affects them, of course. And these are people who can be very, very, very productive once there is good counseling to make sure that but also counseling, by the way, the sources, making sure that the source, what is the source? Is it the men who are a source? Is it women who are a source of gender-based violence? To make sure that all these areas are handled carefully.
Right. You are watching UBC TV, Good Morning Uganda, and we're talking about generating growth opportunities for women through cooperatives. And in studio with us is Mr. Enoch Mutambi. He is a skills specialist at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, as well as Ms. Justine Kayinza, who is the head of partnerships at the Uganda Cooperative Alliance. Now, somebody has go through and says, good morning, UBC. I'm Richard Mudrikiek in Jinja City. My question, my question is, we would get to some, I think we would get some guidance on your joint cooperative extension. I don't know if that makes sense for you, Ms. Justine, but it would be posed to you. The number is 0709 602 592.
Yes, thank you so much. They're asking about the joint cooperative extension. I think the caller wants to find out more on how they can get in touch with the services, with the cooperative services. Uganda Cooperative Alliance, yes, the apex body of cooperatives in the country. Among our key roles, as I said, is the issue of partnerships with lobby and advocacy through partnerships. So as UCA, we reach out to government, we supplement government, and we thank government so much for facilitating us with the subvention. This is money the government allocates in every financial year to help us mobilize cooperators across the country. So through such initiatives, we reach out even to government entities or ministries that have projects that are directly in line with the corporate, which can benefit the cooperators. So as Uganda Cooperative Alliance, one, we are partnering with ministries, and I call upon Ugandans to reach out these opportunities in the GROW project, though we need to look at the issues of policy in that line, because I realize this money is taken to banks and people have to access the money through banks. Maybe Mr. Mtambi in future, we should also have district allocation so that at least we know, because I know there are women, there are cooperatives out there which would benefit from this money from all over. We talk about issues of equality, you know, the SDG agenda, we should not leave anyone behind. But you find that maybe now if I'm talking about Bugishu, people in Mbale would benefit, Mbale City would benefit more than someone who is maybe in Misindwa or Manafa or Sironko somewhere. So in future, for me, I would think as legislators, they would look at that area of policy. How do we ensure that each district? But coming back to UCA, we also have partners. Currently, we're running a farmers organization for a transformation project. This project is running in Bugishu sub-region, Ankole, Busoga, Lango, some areas. So we also lobby partners who have interest also in cooperatives to reach out to the communities. We do capacity building. I call upon Ugandans whenever you're in Kampala, we're on Nkrumah Road. You can check on us, check on our website. All our services are available. We do capacity building. If there are conflicts in our cooperatives, we do arbitration. Section 44 of the Cooperative Societies Act, Cap 107. It gives that mandate to Uganda Cooperative Alliance leadership, the General Secretary, to preside over such a, you know, so that's how we are getting the cooperatives on
board. And you've stated a bit of challenges. For example, that the fact that these funds are deposited to banks and not every woman is able to access a bank, especially in deep rural areas. So elaborate more as we begin to close. Elaborate on the challenges that women are facing in leading cooperatives in Uganda.
Yes, generally in cooperatives, okay, one, we still have gaps in governance, and this is where UCA comes in to do capacity building. We are, in fact, we've had the regional meetings. We are yet to embark on them this year to build capacities. We are close with the commercial officers in the districts. Then secondly, the issue of financing. Finance is still a challenge, so that's why we look out for government initiatives like the PDM, the MIOGAs, the partners like now the Fort project, which is running, and also the banks. Yesterday I attended the Stanbic Bank. They had a dialogue, a conference. So we look out for opportunities also in that area of it. Then the other challenges would be, we still have the conflicts in these cooperatives. We have had now Chivinge, we had the other day, a number of them. But as you see, we are coming on board to ensure, tell them that, you know, look, for us as cooperators, we should be one. We should be united for us to benefit from the cooperative. Then the issues of legislation, let me talk about the law. Yeah, currently, especially when we talk about, of course, cooperatives are diverse in nature. SACCOs are financial forms of cooperatives. We have the issue of multiple regulation. When you come to the SACCO sector, you register with the Register of Cooperatives in Ministry of Trade and Cooperatives. Then when it comes to, if you're to lend, you have to get licensed, you know, from, you have to get a license from somewhere. If your threshold of, you have 1 billion plus, Bank of Uganda. So we want to have, to harmonize the legislation for SACCOs and also its regulation, because that's one of the issues that are also affecting the running. And of course, even the rationalization also has affected us, because UMRA has been, you know, taken back to ministry. So you find the issues of licensing also. SACCOs, people are being stranded. They don't even know what to do, and their enterprises are affected. So these are some of the key issues. Capacity building, we shall still embark on that. And that's why we are happy when we see other partners also coming on board to do financial literacy and others. Trainings.
Now, as we begin to close this, let me read a comment from Semakula from Mitiana. I have trained women entrepreneurs and have formed their SACCOs. Is there any possibility for benefiting from the GROW project? What criteria should be met for them to benefit? This is Semakula Joseph, and you are from Mitiana. This goes to you, Mr. Enoch Mutambi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Semakura, for that good work you are doing. You've formed the SACCO, the possibility of the SACCO benefiting. The GROW project benefits all enterprises. Now the SACCO, I guess that this SACCO is not only dealing in savings and credit, but beyond that, it should be engaged in some productive activity. If the SACCO is engaged in some productive activity, is producing a good or a service and putting on the market, the answer is yes. The SACCO can benefit from growth. So part of the criteria for benefiting from growth is that one should be female-owned enterprise, and as you state, it's a female SACCO. That one is a tick. Then the second one is that it should be involved in provision of a product or a service. It is producing a product or a service, but not just merely in the financial sector. That is another criteria. Of course, the other thing is about the composition. We support Ugandans, but also the registered refugees. But I think Mitana may not have the registered refugees. But also, the other important thing is that if they are engaged in production, at what level is this enterprise? We support enterprises that have already started, as we mentioned, but also within what we call the micro and small scale enterprises, whose annual turnover is in the range of 5 million to 100 million, with a workforce of about 1 up to 49 workers. These are some of the criteria. But then the specific, when we go to the specific services that GROW provides, then there we have specific criteria. For instance, the beneficiaries should be above 18 years of age. For instance, if we go to the common user facilities, the cooperative, it can be a cooperative is one of those that do benefit, but also the CBOs or any other association, as long as they are in business. When we go to training, for instance, the people to be trained must be selected by that SACCO and recommended to be trained. So they are specific. When we come to the grants, also there are specific criteria. I would advise that since these are quite many, you would also approach the GROW website. You will get quite a lot of information on what criteria and for which specific services.
Right. With that, I hope you have benefited and picked something for the day to evolve you as you plan to also be a nation builder for your nation in Uganda. Thank you so much, Ms. Justine and Mr. Enoch, for accepting our invitation here at UBC. Good morning, Uganda. Well, that's it from me for today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.